The first recorded mention of the carousel as we know it was some 400 years ago in the diaries of British traveller Peter Munday, although its origins date back further still. And much like many frivolities of the modern age, its creation lies in the art of war. Originally used as a training ground for jousters and horse riders, where riders would gallop against a rotating barrage of obstacles and challenges, at some point during the 18th century it was realised that a friendlier version, using ornamental horses hanging from chains, could be used to provide the upper classes with the thrill of battle without all the death and consequence. It wasn't until the 19th century, with the advent of the steam-powered carousel, an invention of Thomas Bradshaw in 1861, that would see something similar to the carousels we know and recognise today. 1870 saw Frederick Savage invent the mechanisms for turning rotational spin into vertical movement. This gives the horses their iconic up and down motion that are synonymous with merry-go-rounds today. This was seemingly the last tweak needed to explode the carousel into mainstream popularity, seeing them travel across the Atlantic, where they spread like wildfire across the United States, becoming as entrenched in their carnival history as funnel cakes, sun-cracked asphalt, and the persistent scent of sugary vomit. Yet the carousel did not linger in the past. Unlike many other fairground attractions of the 19th and 20th century that are now only seen in history books, the carousel firmly found itself a home to this day in boardwalks, piers, amusement fairs and theme parks across the world. It has managed to make itself so synonymous with theme parks that in the UK, the official highway signage still references it. This isn't merely an attempt to honour history or rest on the laurels of nostalgia. Even now in 2025, major theme parks are planning new twists on this cemented classic. So what better way to start a new park in Planet Coaster 2 that attempts to look forward to the future while still planting its feet firmly on the shoulders of giants? MeanderVille wouldn't just like a carousel, it needs one. Hello you, welcome to Geekism, and welcome to MeanderVille, or the plot of land that will one day come MeanderVille. I haven't made this map, it's called Moy Valley by Fusey. It's on the workshop, there'll be a link down below, but it encompasses exactly what I'm looking for. An idyllic little spot in some unnamed European country, where we'll hopefully make some magic. MeanderVille will be a highly themed, highly budgeted, master-planned park. Meaning unlike Pinewood Hills that evolved over time, MeanderVille's various sections will all be completed together, ready for opening day. It'll be taking inspiration from places like Disney Sea, Efteling, Phantasialand, Europa Park, and Universal. Today especially we'll be taking inspiration from the new Universal Park Epic Universe and its beautiful Constellation Carousel. We'll be using the Grand Carousel from the Vintage Rides DLC, but covering it up with a scale replica of the Constellation Carousel that looks like in real life to be quite a bit bigger. But whilst the theming and budget will be very high for MeanderVille, we are going to try and keep the scale relatively manageable. But I'll still be trying to replicate some of the core concepts of the Constellation Carousel, such as its celestial theme and its golden filigree, using a mix of art shapes and random scenery pieces to replicate this beautiful structure to the best of my ability. Oh, and it needs a little brother on the side for the queue line. We'll come back to the carousel build in a little while, but I wanted to start working on the surrounding area, including this rather large water feature. I'm going to use the word water feature relatively loosely. It's basically just a big pool. I don't think MeanderVille is the sort of park that would have a nighttime fireworks show or anything like that, but it may have a fountain show that sort of closes out the park, sort of thing where fountains and lights play to a little bit of music as people leave, something which my local park, Canada's Wonderland, does really quite well. I'll probably come back to this once I feel like I'm in the mood to wrestle with the sequencer, but for now just a regular water fountain in the middle of this pond is going to be good enough. I also really wanted to get large areas of water and nature in this park, something that is usually relatively expensive, something I've not been able to do with the more budget focused parks I've worked on into the past. Here we're starting work on our first flower bed. I want a lot of nature here, but I also wanted something that was really quite formal as the entrance plaza, something that the flowers could be coloured to certain events throughout the year, something that really showed that a lot of care and expense went into this area. And if you're building flower beds in Planet Coaster, there's really only one person to talk to get it right. It's not actually Monty Don, that's just the picture that Mike Sheets uses.
All right, so when you have big beds like that, you want to take those curves that you've got there, and then you want to create like graphic lines in between them. Pop something that's a little lime green. I forget exactly what we have for plants.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's a little bright.
Yeah, it's like radioactive to me.
Start splitting this up into pieces. Like in this one, the Ohio Living thing, where you've got that really nice chartreuse line that's kind of running through the border, and then you've got these separation pieces.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah, you build out your design, you bring it into the perspective that you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
and see if it actually makes sense. Does that putting some sort of interest in there that is not necessarily bright as color?
But you would keep them. Would these would be pretty comfortable, like pretty close together, would they? Like,
yes.
Yeah, this would be pretty, like almost like a little baby hedge.
Yep, exactly.
Really, yeah, they'd be okay like that.
Yep.
Well, as far as flowers go,
because you have blues and golds in the carousel, my thought would be to have like bright pansy purples or something like that.
With these, because they're like 3 or 4 different colors actually on the plant there. So how, like, if I was to make a purple one of these, am I just using shades of purple, or would it still have a bit of white in it or something?
That is a great question. I'd start like messing with it and then seeing how it affects it from a distance with like pointillism and all that. As the colors start to mix, that becomes a lot more of a silver. Now, if you want it to be a lot more of a pure violet, then you would just color those down.
You would have them all in that sort of violet range. Yeah. But as far as like picking colors, like you can't necessarily go wrong, I guess is what I'm saying, is that there's like any color combination technically is kind of possible with this kind of plant, this kind of pansy, because I feel like I see pansies in all different sort of colors.
Yes. The only time you're ever not going to see a certain color is cyan. Most plants cannot create that color.
Yeah, just like naturally true blue, right, is difficult to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Is this maintainable? Like can somebody get into here? Like how do we have to think about that when we're making this kind of stuff?
I mean, I would. So having the hedge not be on the water is going to be a lot easier to maintain if you have it set up or build a platform so that they can get to them.
So if we had like a decorative sort of concrete that just sort of followed this round, just to allow them a space to climb down and get down to.
If this is a park that has a gardener that is maintaining a real hedge, they're going to be trimming on that about 4 times a season if it's a year-round park.
How does that plant get looked after? That's right there in the middle with plant all around it, like how does that kind of work?
Well, that's a great question. So for me, I would pull it away from the hedge so that you have an area that you can step behind. Right. Generally with annuals, if they're putting them in correctly and they're not like dying out, annuals generally don't need to be maintained.
Okay.
They'll grow on top of each other, and they'll grow on top of each other, and they'll grow on top of each other. So then what's going to happen is in a nursery behind the park or somewhere, they're going to have the next set for, like, let's say if this is an American park, the 4th of July. So they've got a red, white, and blue set up back there. They're going to pull all those plants out in the middle of the night, and they're going to put all new plants back in.
And they just, like as if you're cleaning a floor, they just keep working so that there's always a dirt area for them to stand on until the last one goes in, and then they hop off kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and Plants are pretty easy. I mean, they're pretty resilient. So if you accidentally crush them with your foot, they'll come back generally.
Yeah.
Or you just have an extra one in the tray. You just pop that one that you crushed out and put a new one in. You can also give yourself a little bit of foot space around those lines, so you can move the viola flowers away, so that those become like areas where you can actually work.
All right. Well, I appreciate your help. I'll have a play around with this now. We think the color is okay for all of this.
I mean, I'd work with it a little bit.
You can be honest, because I just can't see it. So like I need to know. These seem really bright.
They are extremely bright. I'd tone those down. And then for the blues in the pansies, I kind of wonder if you don't make the green a little bluer as well, so that as you push back, that purple comes a lot more like vibrant.
In these ones,
because it'd be great to have that dark purple.
It's more like an aqua kind of thing.
I don't know if it's working.
I don't know. Like I say, it really isn't my area. It's like, imagine the game in black and white. That's basically how I play. So
on that note, then the color doesn't matter as much. What matters is the patterns and like the contrast. If you have good contrast, the colors won't matter nearly as much.
Wow.
That's why a lot of these designs that I pulled, because they are surrounded by green, they generally go with reds or pinks, because that's kind of like complementary on the spectrum. And a lot of plants, especially a lot of annual plants, you can easily get in reds and pinks.
All right, appreciate the help.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm really glad Mike was able to give me some of his time and help me get some grounded concepts down when it comes to nature in the park. It's definitely an area I'm not really familiar with, and I have in the past had the habit of just throwing down some trees that I think look good. But MeanderVille is 100% a labour of love, so I really want to take as much care as I can in every aspect of the park, including planting some pansies. I put Mike's channel in the description. If you're not already following him, you should go and do so. Although he hasn't quite dipped his toe into Planet Coaster 2 himself yet, there's some fantastic Planet Coaster 1 and Planet Zoo content over there. To go along with our new flower beds, I made a lamp that carries over some of the design features from the carousel, and I found this fantastic set of benches on the workshop that turns some of the more stylized benches of the base game into much more realistic and classy versions. They're by Tina, and I'll put the link in the description. I then used my newfound knowledge and carried over the flower bed design to the exterior of the carousel, which is now finished. Apologies for not having more time-lapse footage of this going together. It's actually been built over about 3 months, and anyone who's been playing Planet Coaster 2 will know that it's had a little bit of a rocky start. At time of recording, the February update has not long dropped, and reviews suggest that it's full of bug fixes and quality of life updates that bring the game up to the level that it perhaps should have been when it released. One of the new features I'm most excited about is the addition of custom music, because MeanderVille is incredibly lucky to have its own composer. The incredibly talented Alex Borghurst approached me a little while ago wanting to do some music for a Planet Coaster series, and he's been working diligently to create some bespoke tracks for the park. He is incredibly talented, and I am very, very lucky to have his creations be part of this project. The first of those you're listening to right now. This is Wanderer's Call, our main theme for MeanderVille, and now using custom speakers we'll be able to have it playing in the park. Alright, last for this episode, a little time lapse. I'm going to try and have the way we do these episodes change up throughout them. A little bit of time lapse, a little bit of updates, a little bit of research, a little bit of maybe chatting with a guest, and try and keep it fresh and pacey and moving throughout. So here then we're building our very first gift store, something that I hope the final park will have quite a lot of. One thing I don't think I did very well with Pinewood Hills is get all of the sort of ancillary stuff, the stuff that isn't just the rides, and that's partly because Pinewood Hills was a very budget park, sort of place that probably would just have 1 or 2 big sort of restaurants and then a handful of gift stores that service the park. But some of the larger, more higher budget parks that I visit very often have a gift store for each ride, and or just placed throughout the area. So This is our first one, and it is going to be themed to fit alongside the carousel. This is actually loosely based on a building that is actually opposite the Constellation Carousel at Epic Universe, but that is a Super Mario themed building because it's near the Super Mario area entrance. So the shape is similar, and some of the sort of bits of filigree are similar, but I've tried to move away from it. Obviously it looks quite cartoony and pixely, so I wanted this to look a little bit more just sort of like a classic but really generic architecture. The main reason I really wanted to show you this in this episode and not add it to the next one was because I wanted to talk a little bit about how updates in the game can change how we do things. This started off, as you can see, as a red brick building with grey trim, very sort of classic North American city architecture, and during the build process of this, about halfway through, update 2 came out, the February update, and as part of it there were these signposts, or billboards, sorry. One of them being a circular billboard, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, and I instantly wanted to get some stained glass windows on the wall, again very similar to how the Super Mario building is. Having done that, it instantly changed how this building looks and feels and works. So it goes from being a red brick into more of a castle-y type build. We get extra little bits of filigree, extra little bits of trim here and there, and it sort of really, just from that one billboard being in the game, really sort of shifts this building from one thing to something else. I was quite happy with how it looked before, but I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end, and I think it really keeps the feeling of the carousel while still having its own vibe as well. And that was all from the fact that billboards were added. I'll be honest with you, I've been a little bit vocal about not necessarily feeling like the game needs new scenery, and instead I would rather the developers work on bug fixes and quality of life updates. I still think there is plenty of scenery to be playing with, especially if you build like me or like lots of people who are much better than me, and really sort of push the scenery to its limits. But having that scenery piece, that single piece of a billboard, really shifted how this build worked, and also this build was half built for about a month, and that single piece of a billboard there made me come in and get this finished in about 3 hours. So sometimes I think it's probably fair to acknowledge the fact that new scenery can be a great way to reinvigorate passion within the game. That's something I need to bear in mind as I move forward, I think. The Phases gift store is complete. This is just the beginning, and I have big plans for where MeanderVille is going to take us. This project is most definitely a labour of love, and the episodes will come out when I have enough to show you, for fear of burning out trying to stick to a rigid schedule. With that in mind, and the slightly subdued reception that Planet Coaster 2 has received on YouTube, this series is going to be funded by you. If you'd like to support MeanderVille episodes and get some sneak peeks in between, head over to patreon.com/geekism to see how you can become a Meanderthal. Whilst MeanderVille will have many themed areas, I'm hoping that some of the design choices I've used in this carousel here will act as a palette for what's to come, and concepts such as ornate detailing and sacred geometry is something that I would like to see represented throughout the park. I would love to know your thoughts, so please comment below on what you think so far, and tell me about your passion projects in Planet Coaster 2 as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, be good.